Yes.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Councilor Tim Wake, and I'll be chairing this hearing. I'm going to begin by acknowledging with gratitude that we live and work on the traditional unceded territory of this Squamish Nation, whose people are stewards of these lands and waters surrounding that from Bowen Island. Welcome to the public hearing of November 24th, 2025. I'd like to introduce the elected members of council, beginning on my right with Councillor and Islands Trustee Judy Getty and Councillor Ellen Morris and Councillor John Saunders. And we also have our staff here today, our corporate officer Sophia Zinga and our acting CAO Crystal Watson.
Councilor Fast.
Oh, and Councillor Fast is on lobby. And no, we don't have Alex.
Do not have Councilor Jurgensen now.
Okay. I will now describe the procedural rules for the public hearing. So this is a public hearing for in the first part, 1360 Mount Gardner Road rezoning, and the second part, 1428 and 1430 Eagle Cliff Road rezoning. For ease of reference, we will hear submissions on each rezoning application separately in order of the agenda. This public hearing is being convened in order to consider and receive submissions relating to Bowen Island Municipality Official Community Plan Bylaw number 282, 2010, Amendment Bylaw number 675, 2025, and Bowen Island Land Use Bylaw number 57, 2002, Amendment Bylaw 673, 2025, and Bowen Island Municipal Official Community Plan Bylaw number 282, 2010, Amendment Bylaw number 693, 2025, Bowen Island Municipality Land Use Bylaw number 57, 2002, Amendment Bylaw number 694, 2025. Anyone who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaws will be given a reasonable opportunity to present verbal or written submissions in respect of the matters contained in the proposed bylaws. No one will be discouraged or prevented from making their views heard. To maintain order in the public hearing and to ensure everyone has a reasonable opportunity to be heard, the following rules of procedure have been established. To address the public hearing, speakers must register their name on the speakers list. Speakers may add their name to the list at any time during the course of the public hearing. If speaking from prepared remarks, please send a copy by email to the corporate officer for inclusion in the public record of the hearing. For instructions on how to add your name to the speakers list, refer to the public hearing procedure policy number 21-02. Speakers must make their remarks by stating their name. If speaking on behalf of another person or organization, the speaker must identify that person or organization. The chair will make 3 calls for public submissions, verbal and written. Each speaker may only speak once during each call for a maximum of 5 minutes each time, to a maximum of 3 calls for a total of 15 minutes. Speakers will be called in the order in which they appear on the speakers list. Speakers must limit their comments to the proposed bylaws and must not repeat statements they have already presented. All speakers must be respectful and ensure that comments addressed a specific issue being considered. Inappropriate language or behavior will not be tolerated, applying, interrupting, etc. The chair may remove a member of public from the public hearing at their discretion. All verbal and written submissions must be received by council before the close of this public hearing. Members of council are not permitted to receive further submissions regarding the proposed bylaws after the hearing is closed. Submissions received after the close of the public hearing will be circulated to staff for information. Council, in considering the proposed bylaws, has received documents which may inform its decision. All documents related to the public hearing received by 10:30 a.m. on the day of the hearing are available for review during the public hearing via the hearing agenda. All correspondence received after 11 a.m. before the close of the public hearing are included in the revised public hearing agenda. All verbal submissions at the hearing are summarized in the public hearing minutes. Please observe the rules of procedure, and if you have any concerns in the matter in which the public hearing is conducted, please direct your comments to the chair or the public officer or the corporate officer. Okay. Please take note of agenda item 1.2, which contains instructions on how to register to speak at this public hearing. First, we will begin with the rezoning application for 1360 Mount Gardner Road. I will ask our manager of planning and development to join us to present an overview of the bylaws and rezoning application. Please step up, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Councillor. So I will give an overview of the two bylaws, the effect of the bylaws, and the council history of these bylaws. So bylaw number 675 is a bylaw to amend the official community plan by changing the land use designation at 1360 Mount Gardner Road from rural residential to rural residential E1. This variation would allow an average lot size of 0.5 hectares for lots not serviced by a community water system. The current bylaw language only allows an average lot size of 1 hectare for unserviced lots. And then bylaw number 673 is a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw, and it would change the zoning designation of 1360 Mount Gardner Road from rural residential 3 to settlement residential 1C. And this zone allows a minimum and average lot area of 0.4 hectares for lots not served by community water. Just by way of context, this is the location of the application on Mount Gardner Road, on the west side of Mount Gardner Road as you travel. Yeah, always get it back. Okay, these applications were introduced to council at your meeting on October 15th, 2024. You referred it to committees and directed staff to refer back with results of those referrals. You saw it again in April 28th. You gave first reading to these bylaws at that time and referred them to the Islands Trust, along with an associated Island Trust policy statement checklist. All right, you then saw the application again July 28th, where you referred the bylaws again to the Islands Trust Executive Committee with information on proposed amenity contributions and density calculations in the official community plan. You saw it again November 21st, 2025, and at that point you gave second reading to the two bylaws and you referred them to a public hearing, which is where we are today. Some of those referral responses, so the Housing Advisory Committee discussed this at their November 1st, 2024 meeting, and they supported the application with comments around the affordable housing policy, and the second comment about properties to the south having the same zoning designation being requested. This seemed like a reasonable request, just a comment. The Advisory Planning Commission saw this November 14th, 2024, and they supported the application with conditions. They're supportive of the application, provides smaller lot sizes to enable more housing on Bowen, which is appropriate and consistent with neighboring properties, assuming the services can support it. And seeking for some contribution to be made would be part of the application of partially complying with the conservation development policy. The Parks Trails Agreements Advisory Committee discussed this December 9th, 2024. And they replied they're not in position to support the application since the conservation development policy requirements cannot be met. However, they recommend restorative planting be required to promote Green Lake connectivity through canopy, continuity, and movement of native plant and animal species across the landscape and overall improvement of biodiversity in the area. And the Islands Trust provided comments September 3rd, 2025, and they provided comment that both proposed bylaws are not contrary to or at variance with the Islands Trust policy statement. And then finally, in response to the public hearing notice, which has gone out at the time of writing this, one letter has been received that's in your agenda, which is in support of the application. We note here there's one other letter was received from a neighboring resident after first reading, which expressed concerns about visual impacts as well as the noise from additional traffic. Council staff have since discussed covenant protections to maintain tree buffers to address this concern.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. At this time, I will note that all background information related to these bylaws is available on the municipal website at bowenislandmunicipality.ca. Now, we will hear verbal submissions. Do we have anyone registered to speak on this item?
We have one speaker this morning, and that is Victoria Beckus, who's on Zoom. Victoria, can you hear us? Victoria, I can see your hand up.
Sorry. My phone doesn't work, so I have to use a different phone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have my voice in that matter. And my thoughts about the rezoning that we moved here for the peace and quiet, and exactly for that, how the rezoning is, that there is a lot of nature here. And our worry is the noise, the change of scenery, and also a snowball effect. If this starts one property at a time, what stops it that it will not snowball out to other properties, totally changing the scenery and the level of noise? We fought very hard for very long for the silence of this area. And now that we achieved it, now this is going on. And we are truly worried that it will change it back to what we fought so long to achieve, which is the quiet and peace.
Thank you, Victoria. I'm calling a second time for further submissions. And I'm calling a third and final time for any further submissions regarding official community plan amendment bylaw number 675/2025 and land use bylaw amendment number 673/2025. All right, moving on to written submissions. Do we have any written submissions on this item?
There is one written submission received as following the notice of public hearing, and that was from Karina Headley, and that's included in your agenda.
Now we are moving on to rezoning application for 1428 and 1430 Eagle Cliff Road. I will ask our manager of planning and development, Mr. Martin, to join us, present an overview of the bylaws and rezoning application.
Thank you. So changing topics to talk about bylaws 693 and 694. All right, so these two bylaws would affect property 1428 and 1430 Eagle Cliff, located on the eastern side of Eagle Cliff, sort of just south of the Eagle Cliff water district. Bylaw 693 would amend the official community plan by changing the land use designation at 1428 and 1430 Eagle Cliff from rural residential to rural residential E1. And so as seen as well in the previous bylaw, this designation would allow an average lot size of 0.58 hectares for lots not serviced by a community water system. And bylaw 694 would amend the land use bylaw by changing the zoning designation of these two properties from rural residential 3 to settlement residential 2F. So this zone variation would allow a minimum and average lot areas of 0.6 hectares for lots not served by community water. And as a condition of the rezoning would be conditional on the applicant entering into a protective covenant to protect 50% of the overall site of the property, roughly in these areas shown on the black outline on the map. So Bluff Creek at the bottom of the property, and then the land bordering the crown at the upper or eastern edge of the property. So these bylaws were introduced to council, or this application was introduced to council the April 14th, 2025 meeting. The application was referred to the Advisory Planning Commission for recommendation at that point. The Advisory Planning Commission met May 20th, 2025. They supported the application. They recommended the conditions of the rezoning take into account the recommendations of the environmental assessment, and that the conditions of the rezoning approval require the appointment of an environmental monitor. Yes, okay. We came back to council July 28th, 2025, at which point council gave first reading to bylaw 693 and bylaw 694 and referred the bylaws and the Islands Trust policy statement checklist to the Islands Trust. After that, council met October 14th, 2025 and gave second reading to the two bylaws and referred them to a public hearing with an expanded notification radius. The Islands Trust Executive Committee discussed the referral September 3rd, 2025, and they provided comment that those bylaws are not contrary to or at variance with the Islands Trust policy statement. And then public comments are just showing here that 300-meter radius. So we've received two letters included in your agenda, or the updated agenda, were in support. So one representing the property to the south and one representing 4 properties to the north of the property. We received 2 letters from neighbors with questions and concerns, showing the question marks around Bluff Creek in particular protection and groundwater protection. And then 3 letters of opposition have been received from islanders who are outside of the notice area. And I would just categorize them as generally they're opposing the amendment to the OCP while the OCP update process is underway.
Okay, I have one question for, have those letters, those comments in opposition, have they been addressed in the earlier discussions?
I guess I would say council, like when you first considered this application, staff had brought one of the recommendations was to, or one of the alternatives, sorry, was to postpone consideration of an application to amend the OCP while an OCP update is underway, and council instead at that time chose to proceed. I will say, so following a public hearing at third reading, typically council our staff bring a report outlining all of the comments received and sort of alternatives for council. So it is still a, following a public hearing, council may still, would still consider those comments and still have alternatives available, should you so wish, but you did consider it when it was introduced.
Okay, thank you again, Daniel. I will note that all background information related to these bylaws is available on the municipal website at bowenislandmunicipality.ca. Now, we will hear verbal submissions. Do we have anyone registered? Speak on this item?
We had 2 registered, yes. First of all, we had Christopher Carlson, but he said he wouldn't be able to make it until later. So he might unfortunately miss the verbal submission opportunity. And Randy Poulin, president, second on the list.
Hello, council. Good morning. My name is Randy. I'm the applicant for the rezoning application. And I just wanted to briefly mention that some of the concerns that I have seen through these letters that have been sent in, again, like you mentioned, Councillor Wake, have been addressed through this process of rezoning, and also others that have been addressed through subdivision bylaws and through the subdivision process as well. I think that if there are other concerns, we have worked through them with the municipality. We have gone above and beyond to meet all the requirements that have been set out for us. So I think through the proceedings, we have addressed those concerns. And that's all I really wanted to mention today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I am calling a second time for further submissions. And I'm calling a third time for any further submissions regarding official community plan amendment bylaw number 693, 2025, and land use bylaw amendment. Land use bylaw amendment bylaw number 694, 2025. All right, moving on to written submissions. Do we have any written submissions at this time?
Yes, there were written, upon notice of public hearing, there were written submissions received from Chris Melhorn and Becky Renala, John and Anita Pachekovich. And then over the weekend, we received submissions from Lawrence Turner, Peter Fenton, Mary Poole, Rosemary Knight, and Chris Carlston.
All right, thank you. Okay, we've reached the end of the public hearing. If there is no further public input on bylaws 675 and 673 related to 1360 Mount Gardner Road, and council does not wish to have a further staff report, may I please have a motion to complete this item?
So are we dealing with 2 motions, one for bylaw 675 and one for bylaw 693? So I will move for bylaw 675 that all written and verbal submissions regarding official community plan amendment bylaw number 675, 2025, and land use bylaw amendment bylaw number 673, 2025, up to and including November 24th, 2025 be received, and that the public hearing be adjourned.
Second.
Councilor Jurgensen?
I was gonna second, it's okay.
Thank you. All right, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
And that carries unanimously.
Now, I have a procedural question with respect to the next recommendation. So tell me if that's from the manager planning, I guess. We've had a statement that all the issues that have been raised have been addressed throughout the process. But is there a nice, simple way to get that without or do we get that staff report saying, yes, this issue was raised, this is what addresses it, this issue was raised, it's solved, this issue was raised, it's not an issue. So to get that, we would need to pass the second recommendation. That staff report back regarding.
Through the chair, our normal process, I believe, is that when following the public hearing being adjourned and when we come for a third reading, we would bring a record of, well, we'd bring a link, I guess, to the public hearing minutes and agendas, and all the submission for council to review, whether they're present at the public hearing or not. And in doing that, we would then have a section, like a staff discussion, provided information on issues that are raised. So I would expect then for this application, when we came for third reading, the report would include, these are concerns that were raised, and here is some information, this is how the application addresses them.
So I guess that means we can just do the normal resolution that the public hearing be adjourned, but I noticed Councilor Getty has a.
So there was one person that wanted to have input in person and is not able to do that in terms of being available in between his meetings. But there was a letter from that person as well.
That's right.
Correct?
Yes.
So we will have, this will come back to the council and we'll have a chance.
Yeah, but I guess I don't want coming back to council without the report that says this issue was raised, this solves it, da, da, da. So that's why I was wondering which one I had to pass. So on the assumption from the manager of planning that we will get all those questions answered in the final report, I will move that all written and verbal submissions regarding official community plan amendment bylaw number 693, 2025, land use amendment bylaw number 694, 2025, up to and including November 24th, 2025, be received and that the public hearing be adjourned.
Seconded by Councillor Saunders. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. This public hearing is adjourned at 11:30.
You're now on mute.
Do I stay on this connection for the next Zoom meeting or is it a different link?
No, it'll be a different